Welcome to Wisdom in Question, where we explore timeless wisdom and life-changing insights. Imagine you're at a dinner party. People are chatting about sports, celebrity scandals, and the latest reality TV drama. You, on the other hand, want to discuss the nature of existence, the paradox of free will, or Schopenhauer's theory of suffering. The moment you open your mouth, the room falls silent. People exchange glances. Someone awkwardly clears their throat, and within seconds the conversation shifts back to something more comfortable. This is the silent exile of deep thinkers, an exile not of physical distance, but of intellectual alienation, where the mind is forced to wander alone in a crowd that speaks a different language of thought. Arthur Schopenhauer argued that intelligence is both a gift and a curse. The more a person understands reality, the more they see beyond societal illusions, the collective fictions that keep people comfortable. This depth of perception creates an unbridgeable gap between the deep thinker and the average person, leading to isolation. But here's the kicker. This isn't personal. It's psychological self-defense. Society doesn't reject intelligent people out of malice. It does so out of fear. Because if you see the world differently, you pose a threat to the established order. And history proves this point time and time again. Thinkers and visionaries have always stood on the fringes, their ideas first ignored, then ridiculed, and only later accepted when society catches up. But by then the thinker has often already paid the price for their foresight, facing rejection, loneliness, or even persecution for daring to think beyond the accepted norms. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth. Translation, for making people think. Galileo was forced to recant his heliocentric model because it threatened the religious order. Nikola Tesla died penniless, while Edison, a better businessman but lesser scientist, thrived. Intelligence alone does not guarantee acceptance. In fact, it often ensures rejection. The pattern is clear. Society resists what it cannot immediately understand. If an idea is too far ahead of its time, it is ridiculed, ignored, or outright attacked. And here's where it gets interesting. Some of the very people who laughed at or persecuted these great minds later hailed them as visionaries. The same masses who once feared them eventually revered them. Why? Because only after time dulls the discomfort of their ideas does society feel safe enough to accept them. This isn't limited to just philosophy and science. The same phenomenon has played out across history and politics, literature, and even technology. Giordano Bruno, a 16th century philosopher, proposed that the universe was infinite and contained many worlds. His ideas directly opposed the teachings of the Church, and for that he was burned at the stake. Today we celebrate the idea of an infinite universe as fundamental to modern cosmology. When Charles Darwin introduced On the Origin of Species, he was met with outrage. His theory of evolution contradicted religious beliefs and societal norms. Critics mocked him, some even portraying him as a half-man, half-ape in satirical cartoons. Today his work forms the foundation of biology and genetics. Alan Turing, the father of modern computing, was instrumental in breaking the German Enigma code during World War II. His contributions helped shorten the war and save millions of lives. Yet he was prosecuted for his homosexuality and driven to suicide. Today his work is recognized as the cornerstone of artificial intelligence and computing. Vincent van Gogh, one of the greatest painters in history, was dismissed as a madman during his lifetime. He sold only one painting while he was alive. His art was considered too unconventional, too expressive. Today his paintings are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he is celebrated as a revolutionary artist. Harriet Tubman, an abolitionist and conductor of the Underground Railroad, was seen as a criminal in her time. She was hunted for helping slaves escape to freedom. Now she is regarded as an American hero, with her face soon to be on the US $20 bill. In the modern era, figures like Elon Musk have been ridiculed for their ambitious projects, whether it's electric cars, reusable rockets, or brain-computer interfaces. Many dismissed Tesla as a failure, SpaceX as a joke, and Neuralink as science fiction. Yet over time, these once mocked ideas are becoming part of mainstream technological progress. This pattern is not a coincidence. The very nature of intelligence, its ability to challenge norms, disrupt comfort, and introduce new paradigms, makes it a natural target for resistance. But let's take a step back. If intelligence is so valuable, why is it met with such resistance in the first place? The answer lies in psychology. Have you ever been around someone who was so skilled, so knowledgeable, that they made you question your own abilities? That's the mirror effect. When deep thinkers enter a conversation, they don't just present new ideas. They inadvertently hold up a mirror to others, revealing their own intellectual limitations. And let's be honest, who likes being reminded of what they don't know? This is why intelligent people trigger defensive responses. It's not because their ideas are inherently threatening, but because they expose the limits of others' thinking. Instead of inspiring curiosity, this often sparks resentment. And let's face it, nobody enjoys feeling inferior. This is why intelligence, unlike other forms of superiority, is uniquely isolating. Think about it. If someone is wealthier, stronger, or more attractive, those differences can be rationalized or even admired from a distance. But intelligence strikes at the core of a person's identity. It forces them to confront uncomfortable truths about their own cognitive limitations. And, instead of being intrigued, many feel attacked. It's far easier to dismiss an intelligent person as pretentious or out of touch than to genuinely engage with their ideas. The irony is that deep thinkers don't intend to provoke insecurity. Most of the time, they're simply sharing their thoughts, lost in their own intellectual curiosity. But to those who aren't accustomed to questioning their beliefs, these discussions feel like a challenge they'd rather avoid than engage with. And so, instead of fostering dialogue, intelligence often creates distance. It isolates those who see the world differently, pushing them to the fringes of society where only a few dare to tread. This resistance to deep thinking isn't just an individual reaction. Here it's woven into the very fabric of our social structures. From childhood, we are taught to fit in, not to question too much, and certainly not to make others uncomfortable with inconvenient truths. But what happens when someone refuses to abide by these unspoken rules? They become a social anomaly, admired from afar but rarely welcomed into the fold. If someone is wealthier than you, you might feel envious, but you can rationalize it. Maybe they inherited their wealth, got lucky, or worked harder. If someone is physically stronger, you might admire them or train to compete. But intelligence? That's different. Intelligence is tied directly to identity. It's not something you can easily acquire, nor can you excuse its presence in others with external factors. When confronted with a superior intellect, people don't just feel outmatched, they feel existentially threatened. It forces them to question their own cognitive abilities, and that's not a comfortable place to be. This is why deep thinkers are often labeled as arrogant, condescending, or even dangerous. It's easier to dismiss them than to engage with their ideas. But this isn't just about individuals. It's about group dynamics as well. When an intelligent person enters a room, their presence alone can disrupt the equilibrium. Conversations that once felt light and effortless suddenly become heavier, more reflective. People instinctively recoil, not because they dislike intelligence itself, but because they dislike what it makes them feel: uncertain, vulnerable, and inadequate. The very nature of intelligence sets it apart from other forms of superiority. Unlike wealth, which can be lost, or physical strength, which can decline, intelligence remains a defining characteristic. And because it's so intertwined with identity, the presence of a highly intelligent individual can make others feel as though their own identity is being called into question. This isn't just a momentary discomfort, it's an existential challenge. Most would rather disengage, deflect, or discredit the intelligent person rather than confront their own intellectual limitations. And yet, intelligence is not inherently intimidating. It is the reaction to intelligence that makes it appear as a threat. The deep thinker does not seek to alienate others. They simply seek understanding. But understanding requires effort, and effort is something that many are unwilling to invest. when it comes to questioning deeply held beliefs. This is why intellectuals often find themselves on the fringes of social circles, valued for their insights from a distance, but rarely embraced in personal interactions. If intelligence is feared, it is because it disrupts comfort, and comfort for many is more valuable than truth. The unsettling realization for deep thinkers is that their intellect, which they see as a gift, is often perceived by others as a burden. This is why they must navigate society with both wisdom and restraint, choosing their battles wisely and seeking out those who appreciate their depth rather than resent it. Human beings are tribal creatures. In every group, there's an unspoken social contract. Fit in, follow the norms, and don't disrupt the equilibrium. This instinct is deeply rooted in our evolutionary past. Groups survived by working together, adhering to shared beliefs, and maintaining stability. But what happens when a deep thinker enters the mix? They challenge assumptions, question traditions, and refuse to accept surface-level explanations. In other words, they disrupt the social order, triggering a defensive response. This reaction isn't just social, it's psychological and even biological. When faced with new ideas that contradict their worldview, people experience cognitive dissonance, a mental discomfort caused by holding conflicting beliefs. Rather than re-evaluating their stance, most choose the easier route, rejecting the messenger. This explains why intellectuals throughout history have often been cast out, ridiculed, or ignored. Society, ironically, benefits from intellectual progress in the long run, yet instinctively resists it in the short term. People instinctively push back against anything that threatens group cohesion, even if that threat is just a new perspective. The unknown is unsettling. Deep thinkers unintentionally challenge the social fabric by bringing awareness to contradictions, illusions, and flaws that others would rather ignore. This leads to an instinctive recoil, a reaction not of logic but of emotional survival. Enter the Dunning-Kruger effect, the phenomenon where the least competent individuals overestimate their abilities while the most competent underestimate theirs. The result? Less intelligent people often feel more confident in their views, while deep thinkers, aware of life's complexities, express more doubt. This creates an ironic paradox. Those who are most capable of deep understanding often appear uncertain, while those with the least knowledge speak with the most conviction. In a world where confidence is often mistaken for competence, the loudest voices, not the most insightful ones, dominate conversations. Then there's the status quo bias, the tendency to prefer familiar ideas over new ones, even when the new ideas are demonstrably better. People cling to what they know, not because it's correct, but because it's comfortable. Challenging existing beliefs requires mental effort, and most people prefer convenience over cognitive dissonance. And let's not forget the backfire effect. When people are presented with information that contradicts their beliefs, they don't change their minds. They double down, reinforcing their original stance even more aggressively. The harder you push people toward the truth, the more resistant they become. Put these biases together, and you have a recipe for intellectual stagnation. When intelligence meets resistance, it's not a battle of facts, but a battle against human nature itself. This is why social media, despite its potential for enlightenment, often amplifies ignorance. Algorithm-driven platforms thrive on outrage and certainty, not reflection and nuance. In an age where quick, emotionally charged statements get more attention than well-reasoned arguments, deep thinkers are drowned out by the noise. Their insights, no matter how profound, struggle to compete with the spectacle of oversimplified, attention-grabbing narratives. Today's world rewards quick, digestible content. Algorithms prioritize engagement, which means emotionally charged, simplistic narratives spread faster than thoughtful discussions. This constant stream of easily consumable information conditions people to seek instant gratification, reducing their patience for deep reflection. As a result, in this environment, deep thinking is not just undervalued, it's actively discouraged, even penalized. People crave certainty, not nuance. They prefer affirmations over questions, comfortable illusions over unsettling truths. In a society that values confidence over contemplation, An intelligent person who presents a complex, inconvenient truth is often met with hostility rather than curiosity. Their insights require effort to comprehend, and effort is something many are unwilling to invest. Instead of engaging with new perspectives, people retreat into echo chambers that reinforce their pre-existing beliefs. Schopenhauer foresaw this dilemma centuries ago, recognizing that society, in its pursuit of convenience, would always resist those who challenge its comforting narratives. Schopenhauer believed that intelligence was a double-edged sword. The more one understands the world, the more one sees its inherent suffering and absurdity. This realization often leads to isolation because few are willing to confront such harsh truths. It is not just about understanding facts, but about perceiving reality with an unfiltered clarity that most people instinctively avoid. The more deeply one thinks, the lonelier the intellectual landscape becomes. Conversations become tedious, small talk unbearable, and the realization dawns that true companionship is rare for those who refuse to see the world through comforting illusions. The curse of intelligence is not just the burden of knowledge, but the weight of awareness. The awareness that much of what people hold dear is built on fragile, sometimes deceptive narratives that keep them from facing reality as it is. And the intelligent mind, in recognizing this, can feel an overwhelming sense of detachment, not out of superiority, but out of a recognition that truth often isolates rather than connects. His solution? To accept solitude, not as a punishment, but as a privilege. Instead of feeling alienated, deep thinkers should embrace solitude as a sanctuary where their minds can roam freely, unburdened by the constraints of social conformity. He advised seeking out those who genuinely appreciate deep thought, rather than trying to force understanding upon those who resist it. Engaging in futile debates only drains energy and breeds frustration. Instead, Schopenhauer urged intellectuals to treat their journey as its own reward, finding solace in literature, philosophy, and self-reflection rather than in the approval of the masses. He believed that rather than lamenting the loneliness that intelligence brings, thinkers should channel their energy into creative and intellectual pursuits. In doing so, solitude transforms from an affliction to an opportunity to explore the depths of thought without interruption, to cultivate wisdom without distraction, and to develop an inner world rich with insight. By doing so, intelligence ceases to be a burden and becomes a path to true enlightenment, one that does not require the validation of the crowd, but flourishes in the quiet brilliance of self-discovery. The more one understands the world, the more one sees its inherent suffering and absurdity. This realization often leads to isolation because few are willing to confront such harsh truths. It is not just about understanding facts, but about perceiving reality with an unfiltered clarity that most people instinctively avoid. The more deeply one thinks, the lonelier the intellectual landscape becomes. Conversations become tedious, small talk unbearable, and the realization dawns that true companionship is rare for those who refuse to see the world through comforting illusions. So what's the takeaway? If you're a deep thinker, don't suppress your intellect, but also don't waste it on deaf ears. Find your tribe. Share your insights selectively, but never stop seeking out those rare individuals who truly appreciate the depth of your thoughts. Understand that resistance is not a sign of failure, but a sign that you are touching something raw and real. Resistance often means that you are challenging deeply ingrained beliefs, pushing against the boundaries of what people find comfortable. This is not a reason to stop. It is a reason to refine your approach. Learn when to push forward and when to step back, preserving your energy for those willing to engage in meaningful discourse. The world needs thinkers who dare to question, even if it doesn't always welcome them with open arms. Remember, many of history's greatest minds were not celebrated in their time. Van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime. Kafka's work was barely read before his death. Yet their ideas and creations shaped the world. The rejection you feel today is the price of being ahead of your time. But history has shown that what is feared today is often revered tomorrow. So why do intelligent people scare society? Because they challenge, they disrupt, they reveal uncomfortable truths. But it is precisely these people who drive progress, If you are one of them, take heart. You are not alone. You are part of a long tradition of thinkers who were misunderstood in their time, but who ultimately shaped the world. And if that makes you an outcast, then so be it. After all, history belongs to the misfits. So, embrace your intellect, sharpen your vision, and keep pushing boundaries. The world may not understand you today, but tomorrow it just might follow in your footsteps. Every question holds the key to wisdom. Timeless wisdom, life-changing insights. If today's insights resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, stay curious, stay wise.